All right, guys, welcome. We are live inside the digital newsroom at Fox 5 Live. Thanks for joining us on today's stream. Hi. I'm here with Julie. Hi. Julie is a promo producer upstairs, right, Joel?
Yeah, upstairs, yeah.
Not in the newsroom. No, she is.
Creative services and promotions.
She does promotions. And she wanted to kind of check it out and say hey to you guys. So, well, again, welcome to the show. We're going to talk some of the top headlines and jump around Capitol Hill a little bit, of course, today. One of the big pieces of news today is, well, obviously still the continuing NFL protest stuff, although it's a little lighter today. I know we were talking about it a little bit yesterday.
It's like, I don't know what's going to happen, if it's going to get better or worse, but more people are coming out talking about it. And Jesse James Decker, I told you about how like she talked about her husband getting involved and how he was like brainwashed or like he came involuntarily or it's an article, so I thought that was interesting.
So the singer
who, I'm surprised you don't know her.
I know, I need to get I need to give you guys a little bio.
Those who I know who I'm talking about. Yeah, she's like really popular right now, but
no, I definitely know the name.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming a little lighter, I think, this week, but it will be interesting to see how the NFL plays out this weekend, how this all goes. So continuing with that headline, even bigger today, more locally, police investigating a hate crime at American University with those Confederate flag posters that have been, about 10 of them were placed in more than 4 locations or something across the university. We had a reporter, Bob Barner, was on that story this morning, and I think our reporter Tom Fitzgerald is on that later today, and they did. Police have identified a suspect. They have a video of him, so we have some footage and pictures that trying to disseminate out there to see if anybody knows the person. But really sad that this is still a thing. I mean, we saw like more of that type of hate crime, even at American, over the past few months.
It's ridiculous.
It's still obviously a big thing. So a big story there, guys. And we're gonna kind of just jump around, like I said, with anything that's breaking. Hopefully get Gary in here to talk a little bit about Hurricane Maria, which is still off the coast of Virginia. According to Tucker, we were hearing that it is still there because of the heat, but once the cold front hits, it's gonna make its way out, hopefully. So almost done with hurricane season. What else you got working on, Julie? Anything to say?
Nothing, just a busy, busy day. Happy Wednesday, hump day.
I know.
So we're almost to Friday, but yeah, just busy with projects and whatnot.
Going into Libra season, if anybody's a Libra. I know. My birthday's next Tuesday, so I'm just plugging that out.
Is it?
Yeah. So many people in the newsroom, end of September, early October. It's just a time that people have babies. You know?
Do you have horoscopes? You should try.
I'm not really that into it, but I am proud to be, I mean, people talk about it, but proud to be Libra. Yeah, I don't have horoscopes that I read daily, but I should.
Oh, do you believe that
stuff? Is it a cool segment? Not really. I don't know. Sometimes they're fun to read.
Do you guys believe in horoscopes?
Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, because some people are wishy-washy with those.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of do. Some of the stuff they say about, because I'm an Aries.
Oh, I don't read them enough. Yeah.
Like some of it's true, but then some of it's completely, terrible. Like not even close to what they say. So it's interesting.
Yeah. So another Wednesday, you're going to work on some promo stuff upstairs.
Projects like usual.
So good to have you on, Jules.
Thanks for having me.
You have to stop by more. Yeah.
You're such a great host.
Oh my gosh,
DJ,
we just tried.
Like
the music, the pictures, the tweets, just trying to jumble it all together for you guys. But I'm sure you want some content and not just a view of our newsroom, so we're gonna throw it over. Really, a lot of the stuff I do is politics because that's what we have. I mean, we get those sources in from Fox. We get our camera guys there. So it's a mix of stuff, but we'll try to keep it varied. And of course, have some reporters in the chair to talk about their stories today. So stay tuned with us here, guys. We're going to go over to the Senate Committee on Homeland Security. They're talking about threats to the homeland on Capitol Hill. So we'll try to keep it varied and jump around. Quick live look at the Capitol. Gorgeous day.
Gorgeous.
Today, as we're still in this hot summer weather, which is crazy.
I know, like I'm trying to we just did fall segment on fashion, but like we can't really wear half the stuff because it's not even cold out.
I saw that. I was up there doing some Snapchat and Instagram for it, and gorgeous stuff, and fall is great, but it really doesn't hit till later this week and hopefully into October, which is such a great month for fall. So
I'm excited.
That's what it looks like today, guys. Gorgeous. We're gonna go to Capitol Hill. We'll see Julie again soon. All right.
Bye,
over to the Senate Committee on Homeland Security, guys. We'll check in here for just a little bit and then come back in.
All of these so-called super PACs that can money without attribution to the public and seeing where their money is coming from.
Senator, let me see if there's something I can provide you, in writing after the hearing.
Yeah, because I mean, they can, the notion that nobody in public ever gets to know where these money is coming from, that is like tailor-made for Russia. And that's where the majority of the money is being spent in our elections right now, sadly, as a result of Citizens United.
Senator Langford.
Thank you. Director Ray, let me ask a question and just read something. It comes off the FBI website. It says, hate itself is not a crime, and the FBI is mindful of protecting freedom of speech and other civil liberties. So what I'm trying to figure out is a trend and a direction. I hear a lot about hate groups now, and then we've always talked about hate crimes. So what I'm trying to figure out is the FBI maintaining a list of hate groups that are under greater scrutiny, and if so, how is that list developed?
Senator, we do a couple different things. Our focus is not on, we don't track movements or ideologies or groups that have specific beliefs. We focus on situations where, so from the terrorism angle, right, there's two different pieces of that. There's a domestic terrorism angle, for example, and a hate crime angle, and we do both. We focus on the threat of violence, and so there has to be proper predication for us to start an investigation. The FBI has a history that we try to be very sensitive to about not investigating people for their beliefs in this country.
And that's entirely appropriate and protected in the United States to have whatever belief you want to have, even if it's wrong, is entirely appropriate. My question is, are you tracking, does the FBI keep a list of hate groups, or do you outsource that to some other group? If I called the FBI and said, who's on your list of hate groups, would there be a list?
We have, I would say, networks of people that are working together, and then we have, so there's groups in that sense. I don't know that we would call them hate groups, but then we also have certain, I think we have 9 designated movements that we've used as sort of identifiers for particular types of, it's just a way of categorizing investigation.
But it's a list the FBI has created. No outside group has created that for you and sending it to you.
Correct. The list, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Duke, let me ask you about entry-exit visas, what we've talked about before as well on it. The report came out in May listing out people who have overstayed their visa. From last year, we have 600,000 people in the country that have overstayed a visa, and we don't know where they are. So let me ask you a question from the 9/11 Commission, from something that's a decade and a half in the making here. There's a requirement to put in place entry-exit visa verification. If they come into the country, we know who they are. When they're leaving, we should be able to track and know when they leave, and if they leave and if they don't leave, to be able to go find them and to figure out why they're still here. How is that going? There's a pilot program that's underway. I want to know how that's advancing and if everything's on schedule.
Yeah, the pilot program that uses photos and biometrics is doing very well. Our next phase, which we're implementing now, is integrating it into TSA. It was only being used by CBP, and to date, that is the way we intend to progress. The pilot has proved itself successful so far in its limited application.
Okay, full rollout will be by when?
I'd have to get back to you with a date on that, Senator.
Okay, that would be very helpful just to be able to get a feeling of when we're rolling out and how long this is going to take. This has been a request for a very long time of Congress, and I know you're walking into this and trying to help finish a project that is ongoing, but it's one that is exceptionally important and continues to grow in importance.
Agree.
Let me ask a little bit about election again. I had asked you before about any state request for on-site assessments, and you felt like any state that wants to get it, that you're prepared to be able to do it. I would tell you I've had this conversation before with DHS folks, and their statement to me was, if we had more than just a few states ask us, we are not personnel ready to be able to actually go help them in time for the 2018 elections. So what I'd like to do is have a longer conversation with you where we can walk through and see what you're going to need to be able to be at that point, because it's been my understanding in the past that DHS is currently not prepared to be able to fulfill requests as they're coming in. It may be requests are not there yet, but if 10 states all made the request at the same time, we couldn't make it in time for the 2018 election, and we've got a lot more than 10 states that may make that request, and try to figure out how we can get you ready for that. The other one is trying to get states, and what I'm interested in is your perception, where states are right now and understanding the risk. As the notifications have gone back out again to individuals, and thank you for correcting who gets notified in states, that does make a difference in getting the message out. But as that's going out, do states understand the significance of the cyber threats they face on their network, from their voter data lists, from the equipment that they're there? Are they prepared to do an audit? And again, I'm not asking for the federal government to take over the state's elections. That's theirs. But are they prepared to be able to do an audit where they can verify with paper and with electronic, if they use electronic, to be able to even audit after the election whether their machines have been hacked or affected at all?
We've seen some more interest. There still is.
All right, guys, we're back in the newsroom with Tom Fitzgerald as promised. As
Hello,
we usually
you promised?
Yes, we promised that we tease it out quickly because this story that is really dominating our local news today and also really important, another hate crime at American University in D.C.
Well, that's what they're investigating. Campus police have put out a video this morning showing a man who appeared to be wearing construction clothing this morning was identified as somebody they would like to talk to about a series of Confederate flag flyers, is the way they're describing it, that appeared on the campus of AU. Now, the context of this is that last May, there was an incident where somebody had hung bananas
Remember that.
from trees, which was investigated by the FBI as a hate crime. There was no arrest in that case. They did investigate it. They had surveillance video of a person of interest in that incident, which they did put out to the public. However, here we are again. We should also add that there have been a series of incidents at college campuses around. That's the
yeah, I'm going to bring this up. 1 second.
that's the person that they are looking to speak to in regards to this. Now, we don't know who that person is or why they were there, but we're going to hear more about that at 1 o'clock when the American University Campus Police speak to us about this.
So they're going to be talking about
Hence my rushed appearance this morning.
Yeah, so he's rushed. He's going to get out of here soon. But
So, to put it in context, we've had a number of incidents at college campuses around our area. Last week at Georgetown University, there was an incident that somebody put swastikas on the bathroom stall wall of a women's dormitory bathroom, and then also wrote derogatory, threatening language towards women. There was an incident at George Washington University where someone had hung anti-Muslim flyers around the campus and then forged them in such a way to make it appear as if they came from a conservative student group that had nothing to do with this. So this is a problem that has not been limited to one college campus in this area, and it's certainly not probably going to be the last time, unfortunately, we deal with something like this. But what may make an impact is if there are arrests. And that has time and again proved the difficulty in these cases.
to actually make the arrest.
To make an arrest. So that is the impetus behind the news conference that we're going to be attending today for the American University Police. I can tell you the last time this happened in May with the incident with the bananas, the FBI was contacted. The FBI did assist in that investigation with their hate crimes unit. We do not know the parameters of this incident right now. And have you shown what the banners are? Or
I'm trying to get that up. Yeah, it was just been tricky to get it up, but I'm trying to.
Basically, it was this flyer.
Confederate flag, right?
That contained a Confederate flag, and the inference here being was that this was done intentionally to threaten and intimidate people on campus. Now, they've had very clear language in the university about this kind of thing not being welcome, and they have put out images not only of the person of interest that they are looking for, about what these actual flyers were. So that's what we're going to be looking at, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about that later on today.
Yeah, I can't seem to get a picture of the flag up, but again, Confederate flag with the it was cotton on it.
You know what the Confederate flag looks
Yeah.
like. There was a piece of cotton attached to it. And, you know, the message there, I think, is clear. It was meant to intimidate people. It was, you know, meant to scare people, and it was not meant in, in any other way but to, send a message to people on the American University campus. So that's my quick
It's so
update
quick.
for you.
I know I want a mistake. Okay,
every
it's
now
quick.
and then I can get to the point, so that's, I'm going to
All right, you got to go. The president spoke on this too. American University president gave a statement, right? You mentioned that?
Put out a statement.
Put out a statement.
Yes.
And then,
so we're hoping to hear more from all of them in about an hour. So
Great.
We'll be live for you.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll bring that to you guys live. So be aware of that. It'll be coming up at around 1, I think, in an hour. So we're going to go back now to Capitol Hill, guys, where we have our live source. But your little look inside the digital newsroom right here. I'm going to take this off. I'm Molly Nevola in D.C. And we're going to talk some hot topics. And flash around different cameras that we have. So again, coming up at 1, press conference on this investigation of a hate crime at American University right here in DC, just a couple stops down the road from us. And also whatever kind of political news, Capitol Hill news that we got. Leave your comments in the live chat. Ask me any questions. Give us any comments that you got on this Wednesday, guys. Really good to see you. Thanks for watching us. We're going to go to Capitol Hill for now.
Have a statute may not be the terrorism charge. There may be reasons why it's simpler, easier, quicker, less resource intensive, and you can still get a long sentence with some of the other offenses. And so that's really the approach we've been taking on the domestic terrorism front, where a lot of times there are good, effective, very serious charges we can bring. And so even though you may not see them from your end as a domestic terrorism charge, they are very much domestic terrorism cases that are just being brought under other criminal offenses.
No, and I do understand that, but I also am concerned about making sure that we are doing everything we can to go after these domestic terrorism groups who promote violence. So I've just been trying to think through, let's say we had a case of neo-Nazism terrorism. There's nothing, as I understand it, the defining factor for a charge of international terrorism can be whether the idea is, the ideology that is being espoused comes from outside of the United States. So there's nothing American or inherently domestic about Nazis. So if a neo-Nazi carries out a mass murder while yelling Heil Hitler, that would certainly appear to be an ideology that originated from outside of America's borders. So could they be considered international terrorists?
Senator, I'd have to think about that one a little bit. I'm not sure that we would call that international terrorism, but we have brought neo-Nazi cases. We're going to continue to bring them when we have the proper predication and the elements of the offense. And I have not been hearing from my folks that they've been feel hamstrung in that space. But as I said to Senator Peters, we can always use more tools in the toolbox to try to be as effective as possible.
Well, I thank you for that, and I think it just goes to the point that there are some real complexities here, and we want to make sure that we are giving you appropriate tools, recognizing the complexity of the domestic situation, but also the real danger of these terrorist groups. With that, I thank all of you for your service very much and for being here today.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Carper.
Thanks. Thanks. I apologize for being in and out. We have a bunch of hearings going on, and we all serve on different committees, as you know. I'm pleased to be able to participate, at least intermittently. My first question is not really a question. I just want to say something, and so I'll just go ahead and say it. I had a good conversation with Admiral Peter Neffinger, who was our leader at TSA until earlier this year. Great leader in the Coast Guard for years, as you know. I think it was on 9/11 this month. I think GAO released a report that found that TSA needs to take action to evaluate cost and effectiveness across its security countermeasures. The report from GAO found that TSA lacks some basic information to assess whether its programs are effective in deterring or detecting potential attacks on our aviation system. And under the previous administration, under Admiral Neffinger's watch, he and others have worked to institute reforms at TSA. I thought they made a lot of progress, but they try to institute reforms at TSA in order to improve detection capabilities, to improve training and workforce morale, speed the screening, and partner with the airlines and other private sector companies to invest in the 21st century screening technologies. And I understand that as his successor, Admiral Pekoski, who's also, I think, a very able leader. How lucky we can we be to have two guys that qualified and that good as leaders. But I was pleased to vote to confirm him with my other colleagues earlier this year. So here's what I want to ask. I just sort of ask as a favor, Ms. Duke, and that would be to ask you to work with Admiral Pekoski to take a look at the GAO report. You may have seen it already. Take a look at it and make sure that try to make sure that the needed training and acquisition reforms continue in order to ensure the continued security of our aviation system. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're both committed to that.
Good, thank you. And now just one question on the revised travel ban for each of our witnesses. And I think it was this last Sunday, President Trump issued yet another executive order limiting travel from, I think, 8 countries. This new travel ban is indefinite in length, meaning that nationals from these countries will not be able to travel to the U.S. until such a time as the president sees fit to remove them from the list. And other countries listed in the original travel ban or the new one have been associated with deadly terrorist attacks in the U.S. Some of them are currently suffering from humanitarian crises. And in addition to imposing a new travel ban, it's been reported that President Trump intends to cut refugee admissions to some of the lowest levels in history. And I have to think that some of these actions, the ban, the cut in refugee admissions, may have an adverse impact on our national security. So I would just ask for you, Ms. Duke, if I could you share with us any analyses that the department has conducted to determine the cost and benefit of imposing a new ban? That would be my question of you. Can you share with us any analyses that the department is conducting to determine the cost and benefit of imposing a new ban? And to Mr. Ray, to Nick, in terms of priority, would this travel ban be in your top, say, I don't know, 5 action items to take to prevent terror attacks on the homeland? First, Ms. Duke, thank you.
What we need is we need better identity management, better vetting of persons, and that's what this review was. We did a very thorough review of all the countries. We have not done a cost analysis because I don't think you can put a cost on letting a terrorist into the country. However, we have structured it, as you saw in the proclamation, that as soon as a country gives us the information and starts doing the information sharing under the 3 criteria, we don't want people to be on a travel restriction. It is not in the best interest, and so we are hoping that this will give incentives for them to work with us. Additionally, I want to point out that refugees are not subject to the ban of any country.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Ray, Nick, the second question. In terms of priority, would this travel ban be in your top 5 action items to take to prevent terror attacks on our homeland?
Well, Senator, I don't know that I've got my priorities in that space in the list, but I would say that getting sufficient information from foreign countries to allow us to prioritize targets of interest is a very high priority for us because, as you probably know, the name of the game in this space is trying to make very difficult judgment calls under sometimes very tight time constraints about which subject is the highest priority investigation, and we can't do that without sufficient information from the countries of origin.
Mm-hmm. The only thing I would add is, again, I don't know that I have a prioritization schema in mind that would rank our particular activities. As I said in response to one of the other senators' questions earlier, our particular piece of this is to provide the best possible intelligence input to what is, as Director Ray said, a very complex decision, and to make sure that we can do that in a repeatable, in a consistent, in a predictable way so that the State Department and Department of Homeland Security, who end up owning these responsibilities, can count on the best possible input from the intelligence community. We are going to forever be limited by the amount of information we have available to us, and so we are going to be in a constant effort to try to increase the pile of information that we're relying on to provide that input.
All right, and I would just say in conclusion, thank you for your responses, but it seems peculiar to me, interesting at least, peculiar maybe, that countries that have never apparently posed a threat to us in terms of a threat on the homeland, we're going to say, for whatever purpose, you can't come here. We're not going to allow you to travel to our nation for school, for other reasons. And yet there are other countries that have posed a real danger, it still do, and that they are free to come and go. It just seems peculiar. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Harris.
Secretary Duke, I asked one of my team members to just go quickly to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services website to make sure it was still there, and it is. On page 6 of 27 of the FAQs, and the question, because it is a frequently asked question, is will the information I share, this is the DACA applicant, will the information I share in my request for consideration of DACA be used for immigration enforcement purposes? And they are told in the answer in this document, individuals whose cases are deferred pursuant to DACA will not be referred to ICE. I also have a 2-page letter signed by Jay Johnson on December 30th, 2016, where he indicated, since DACA was announced in 2012, DHS has consistently made clear that the information provided by applicants would be safeguarded from other immigration-related purposes. So I would ask you to familiarize yourself with these documents, because we are talking about 700,000 young people in this country right now who are in utter fear about their future, about their lives right now, their families are, their employers are, their friends are. And you have a responsibility to be clear about what your agency is doing as it relates to keeping a promise to these young people and thinking about their situation right now and their future. I would also point out to you that I asked you 6 months ago during your confirmation hearing about this document, which was a memo, Homeland Security, indicating there were 7 new priority enforcement areas. And the 7th, which reads, in the judgment of an immigration officer, they may have enforcement responsibilities if in their judgment that person poses a risk to public safety or national security. I asked you then, what are the factors for consideration, and how are you training your agents on how they should exercise that judgment, knowing that you have limited resources and there are potentially a lot of people that could fall in that category? You indicated to me you would get back to me on how those agents are being trained, and you've not done that. On a separate matter, you have indicated on September 5th that DACA would be rescinded and that these individuals would have until October 5th to reapply. Otherwise, they would fall out of status. And my question to you is, did your agency directly notify the DACA recipients that they will be eligible to renew their applicants? Did you notify them directly, or was this just through the press?
We have not contacted each individual directly.
And you've given them a month from the time that that word went out, 1 month only, to apply to renew their status, which requires them to submit many forms and fill out the information in those forms. It requires them by October 5th to also provide a $495 application fee. Within 1 month, it requires them to supply 2 passport photographs. Passport photographs cost between about $15 and $20. Last time I looked, federal minimum wage is about $7.25 an hour. And so my question to you is, given the responsibilities that they are required to meet to apply before October 5th, given also, and we've talked about it in this hearing, the impact of Harvey and Irma and Maria, will you consider extending the deadline beyond October 5th for these kids to apply?
I am just as passionate as you are about doing the right thing by the people in America, and I commit to working with Congress to do the right thing. An unconstitutional program that only keeps them in 2-year limbo status is not the right answer for these people.
So are you willing to extend the deadline that you've already set, given the circumstances of these natural disasters that have also occurred in the interim?
We have not been notified by anyone that natural disasters have affected. I have looked into the process. There is a money issue, I agree with you there, but the process itself is very simple. We will do what was right. It is an unconstitutional program, so that is constraining, and I hope that we can come up with a better solution through Congress.
Are 700,000 young people supposed to suffer because you didn't figure out how to implement this program properly? Are 700,000 young people supposed to be terrified because they can't come up with a lot of money within 1 month?
It's not my position to come up with a statute. That would be Congress's responsibility.
Who came up with the decision that they would be given 1 month from September 5th to October 5th?
That is something that we came up with to end the program in a compassionate manner.
I'd ask you to consider extending that deadline.
Thanks, Senator Harris. I would just point out again that one of the reasons many of us asked President Obama not to use his executive authority, what we believe is unconstitutional, is because it would create these types of issues. So, certainly from my standpoint, I want to do everything I can to solve this problem in a very humane fashion. I'm happy to work with you and any member on the other side of the aisle, together with my Republican colleagues, to fix this. We got 6 months to do it, and let's really work together in a bipartisan fashion to humanely
I agree.
resolve
Let's
this
pass the
issue.
DREAM Act. I agree. A clean DREAM Act. I agree with
Well,
you. Thank you,
again,
Chairman.
that's not exactly the best way of doing it bipartisan. So again, hopefully there'll be some give and take here and we can actually do things to secure our border as well. With that, again, I want to thank all of our witnesses, not only for your testimony, written and oral, the time you've taken, but literally just the commitment you've made to this nation. It's a 24/7 job. Every last one of your positions here, it's an enormous responsibility. And this committee thanks you sincerely for doing that. With this, the hearing record will remain open for 15 days until October 12th, 5 p.m. for the submission of statements and questions for the record. This hearing is adjourned.
Especially now that it's collapsing, there may be more. What are we learning about? I know the FBI has a really good handle on who's left here and who's over there now. What happens when they, I don't know if they come,
All right, are we ready to talk a little weather with Gary?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So glad
I know
we're
a little
live.
bit about it.
A little bit. We're live with Gary McGrady, guys. You haven't seen his face in a while. We're happy to have him back.
Couple of days.
You doing okay?
What are we on? We on YouTube?
We're on YouTube right now.
Okay, we're on YouTube right now.
Sometimes,
okay.
guys, we push to Facebook, as you know. And if you're coming on a YouTube stream because you saw the headline about the hate crime at American University, we're definitely going to bring you that coming up at 1 o'clock. And you heard a little segment or a little teaser from Tom Fitzgerald earlier about that. So that's coming up at 1. But now to kind of chill and hang out, we're going to talk weather.
Our camera is falling.
This one is fallen, but
okay.
we're on this one, luckily.
All right, good.
Hang on, we have a little cluster over here. All right, so
okay, so you asked questions. So
yeah,
let's see
talk
what's going on.
Quickly first. It's hot out in the district right now. It's still summer weather.
Oh yeah, it sure
Oh my
is.
goodness! And we were looking at. I just put up the screen earlier. There it is. Hot temps here and until the weekend, right? Is that right?
It's got a weird kind of
weird
thing
angle
looking on it, but somebody might need to push a button, but I can't reach it. Look at that. It's it's hot. It's muggy outside too. Everybody knows 84. This will be the last hot day. I mean, we're going to cool off.
Awesome.
So I think we've got 70s basically in our future for the next several days. We may warm up a little bit again next week.
Mm-hmm.
But the 90s, we had 90s
this week.
And I think that's mostly over. I don't want to guarantee it for anybody, but I think it's mostly done. Okay.
All right, so going into fall.
And so we've got a little bit of it's. Show a picture of the cap. Show that one right there.
Oh yeah, it's so pretty outside. It's more humid, right?
We've got some clouds, and that's really kind of what's pushing across here. Really from Tropical Storm Maria. I live farther out north and west, and I just drove down a little while ago. We don't have these clouds, and we'll be able to see that a little bit on the satellite picture when we show that.
All right. Oops.
It's
a crazy day. So it's Wednesday. We're excited. Hump day. You're doing okay. You're chilling.
I'm doing
got your coffee.
Mm-hmm. We have good coffee here, by the way.
I'm now gonna try that out because I didn't know.
It's
free. It is free.
And what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna look real fast to
good.
see if anything has changed
on
our tropical storm.
Yeah.
And hurricane. That's
Let's
Lee
take a
out
look.
there.
Yeah, we're gonna look because we've been
second.
talking. Should I throw the satellite?
Yes.
We've been talking with Mike Thomas this week about Maria. Apparently, it's still lingering outside of Virginia, according to Tucker this morning. And this is what it looks like. Gary can give me sort of more of the details, but that's Lee out there. And
the first storm you see there, the first blob off the coast is Tropical Storm Maria. And it's moving to the northeast, okay? So that's good. So it's basically doing what it was forecast to do, and that's good. The winds are, hey, wait a minute. Here's honestly, did this just come across? Yeah, this is that's why I grabbed my phone to look at it, because I just got here, and so things have changed. It is back to Hurricane Maria.
So it upgraded.
The winds are now up to 75 miles per hour. So yeah, we do have a hurricane off the coast there.
So what denotes tropical storm from hurricane again? The winds.
Once it gets over 74.
Oh, okay.
It basically becomes a hurricane.
So now, is this coastline seeing residual effects?
Yes, very much so. I mean, hold on one second. Let's look and see if they've upgraded any of the warnings. Again, this is just
great.
Since I was just driving in.
Okay.
I think this has kind of changed a little bit. Okay, here we go.
So now a hurricane.
Okay, so they didn't really upgrade anything. So they've got a tropical storm warning still out there for basically the Outer Banks. It looks like from, say, Cape Hatteras all the way up to Duck, right at the North Carolina-Virginia border. And oh my gosh, yes, they're getting heavy surf. Obviously, they've been getting heavy surf for several days now out there, and that extends all the way up the coast. Up towards even up into parts of New England there. So that's definitely. It's not so much that it's become a hurricane again, but it's just that it's been sitting there for so long, and it's creating, the waves, 10, 15, 20, 30 feet 30-foot waves up under the storm. And then that ripple affects all the way out to the coast.
So when that is the case, it's not advised to surf in that, right? Not that we have, we do, there's still, all I'm saying is.
You're not a surfer.
I'm not, but it's different, obviously, right? East Coast, West Coast. you don't see it as much. But Mike was saying there's those adventurous people, tons of them on this coast that
Oh my
surf off of
gosh.
Carolina, of course.
Please,
that
yes.
want to use these waves.
Yeah, absolutely,
Whoa.
absolutely.
Dangerous?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's dangerous, but probably being a surfer at any time is kind of dangerous.
Sure,
but,
sure.
But I mean, these guys that live over here, they only rarely do they get good waves, good swells like this coming off the storms.
Yeah.
So look, I'm not condoning it one way or the other, but I'm sure they're out there in it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
20 to 30 foot. Oh my goodness.
And I'm not a big wave forecaster, but this has been a good week for those guys that do that. So we've got Hurricane Maria, again forecast a weekend again to become a tropical storm. And the forecast hasn't changed in terms of, she's basically going to take a big right turn here over the next 12 to 15 hours or so.
Go out
and just take off.
that way.
Okay? And then this guy out here,
The little.
that's Lee.
Oh, right.
So Lee is almost, let's see what happened with the 11 o'clock update on Lee.
Is that a female or male Lee?
That would be a male Lee.
Okay.
Yeah, male Lee. Because it goes female, male, female, male.
Harvey,
so Maria, obviously the L before the M.
Harvey, Jose, Irma Maria.
Gotcha.
Or
Lee Maria.
Lee Maria.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that
yeah.
Lee actually became Lee before Maria became Maria. And we've been talking about Maria, it seems like,
That's right.
ad nauseum. Let's see, what is Lee up to right now? Lee is now a major hurricane. So it's up to 115 mile per hour winds. Very small storm. And the forecast for Lee, at this point, we are not worried about Lee at all because he's also going to take a big old right turn over the next 24 to 36 hours. And Lee and Maria will be leaving together.
So simply
off to the east
because
and to the northeast.
Because of the chillier temperatures and the cold front coming in.
Basically, yeah. Yeah, you've these things kind of follow the flow of the atmosphere, the highs and the lows, and they're kind of working around a high now. There's a big high off to the east, pardon me. They're floating around that, and then we have another little area of low pressure or a trough. Basically what it means is winds aloft coming from the southwest will really protect the east coast from Maria and then take both of these storms out of here.
Wow.
And that's why as we start getting into October especially, it's harder and harder to get a storm, a tropical storm, hurricane, to hit the east coast because of the fact that we're kind of protected by these areas of low pressure. And that carries them away. So a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times, the storm will miss the East Coast altogether or maybe just brush North Carolina because North Carolina sticks out. So
us being here in Washington, obviously some of our viewers always ask and want to know, what are we going to sense from this? Really nothing because it is supposed to be going out?
Well, that's why when I showed you, we're getting the clouds from it. We're getting a few clouds. It's kind of pushing this eastern flow.
As you see.
And if you look up to Washington here, see that's the clouds. And then if you look at the satellite picture up there, you see this little streak of clouds right there. See it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's some of what we're feeling now. It's just pushing.
It's not much. Okay.
It's just pushing a little moisture in. Mid-levels, and we're getting a little bit of cloud cover from there. But it's beautiful outside. It's kind of humid.
Yeah.
But it's great. And then, like I said, the farther north and west you go, from a tropical system, it becomes very, very stable. So you get clearing skies. So even north and west of the city, you don't have to get very far up into the northwest suburbs, and it's perfectly blue sky out there. We're not seeing any of these clouds.
Like where you were this morning.
It's like where I was this morning. Yeah.
Wow. All right, well, good to know. Not too much effect there.
And then Lee's a major hurricane now. I think that's the 4th major this year, maybe the 5th.
Major meaning?
Category 3 or higher.
Category 3 or higher.
And that starts at 111 miles per hour. It becomes a Category 3. This is a Category 3 because now it's 115 miles per hour. And they don't fly. They haven't flown a plane out there. They do that based on satellite. Into Hurricane Lee, they have not. They have not. I want to say they haven't. I don't believe. Usually they don't fly them out there like that.
Meaning it's too far off the coast to do that?
Too far away. They're not worried about it making landfall. So they're just using the satellite in order to give it a, and they can do it very well in order to get wind speed and the strength of it and the pressure of it.
Awesome.
They're almost perfect when they do it.
It's crazy to think about these hurricane hunters when we were in like the height of the season. I didn't even know that that's how a lot of the data is taken.
Right.
And the cams from inside are so cool and crazy.
They fly right in. They fly right in at all levels, it's not been recent. I think it's in the last decade they've started flying a Gulfstream plane over the top of these storms, And I mean, I think this is anecdotally for me in terms of forecasting and being around these things for so long. Once they started flying the plane over the top and getting measurements, I think that the modeling and the forecasting has gotten so much more reliable for these storms. So that's been great. And not only that, but anytime there's more computer power, we get better forecasts.
And there's usually one guy or a couple guys in that plane that goes over?
There's a whole team of them. I don't know how many fly in that one in particular, but I mean, they've got planes flying out of Tampa. They've got planes flying out of Biloxi, Mississippi. So they keep them covered. They keep them covered. I flew on a Hurricane Hunter, the big one, the C-130, out of Biloxi. So we flew on that.
Wow.
So that was kind of cool.
You've done it all, dude.
They had a media opportunity, so we took it.
Love it.
Hey, listen, I want to say this too.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was down at the D.C. police office, the headquarters. They're sending 10 officers to Puerto Rico today.
I saw this. We took it on our morning show a little bit. Some footage. Really
great
good.
Story. How 8 of which grew up in Puerto Rico. So they're going down there. Jose Gonzalez, one of the officers, has yet, they don't know where his sister is. She's down there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she's missing. And he's not concerned yet because of the fact that there's so little communication right now on the island, and they feel like where she is, it just may be one of those places that they can't get communication from.
Absolutely.
There's limited cell service. There's still not really any power. So they're going to fly down there. They left this morning to fly in and just be there, obviously as police and whatnot, but they don't know exactly what they're going to do.
Okay.
They don't know exactly how long they're going to stay.
Wow.
But obviously they know the language because, like I said, 8 of the 10 grew up there, and they know the area. And so to hear some of their stories were pretty powerful. Yesterday. So they just announced that. So I was down covering that yesterday.
You covered that yesterday. And I think Melanie Alnwick followed that sort of story this morning because they left this morning, I think.
Good.
And we saw some footage of them sort of praying before the trip and going down there and getting in there, getting all their gear together. And so she had a little more detail. It seemed really cool.
And I'll say this because I witnessed it, whether they want me to say it or not, but it doesn't matter because they've already flown off. A few of the officers were doing other interviews yesterday. Right in front of the police headquarters, somebody tried to pick the pocket of the policeman standing there and actually got his phone out of it. It was unbelievable.
Did you guys see it live? You all saw it?
I saw when he grabbed this person and took him to the ground to get his phone back.
So he counterattacked, basically, got him down.
Yeah, he felt it, and he went, and he knew the person. He knew the perp, so to speak.
He did?
Yes, he knew. So
they were buddies?
No, I think it was kind of a regular.
Oh, he knew who he was.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I hadn't heard that. That's a story in itself.
So it was.
Did it become one? I mean,
no.
It was just a thing.
He didn't have time to mess with it, so he's just like, "Get out of here, you crazy
person." Oh, I see. It was like a little.
I couldn't believe we're right in front of the police headquarters. 3 cops stand there, and this person tries to grab
one of their cell phones.
Takes it right out of their pocket.
Why? Like, I don't understand. The least. Type of person that you'd want to do that from,
but
right?
I've never been out in the city doing what I do now. So the things I see you're like, wow.
He has some cool stories. You get to see a lot of cool stuff, including, oh my gosh, you're covering this really cool thing tonight, which I know you're probably still reading into, but it's an artsy thing, so I'm into it. Art Tech House, a really cool digital art kind of museum, you could call it, / exhibit. In the Omni, or next to the Omni Hotel down at LaFont Plaza, is doing their second digital art display called Spirit of Autumn, so they're getting into the fall mood. We, as the digital team, did really cool coverage of their first exhibit. We did a cool video and story. You can find that on our website, fox5dc.com. But we're going to cover it again digitally, but Gary's going to get to do a live shot there.
And I'm not even sure what it is.
He's going to read into it, but it's a cool, hard to explain.
It's interactive.
Interactive art display where you can become part of the art, and it's lights and leaves and autumn things.
Okay.
You'll have fun with it.
Wonderful.
But you do get to do the neat little art things, so
Sometimes,
it's fun.
Yeah, it's good.
You get to see a lot.
We try to do. I want to try and cover things that people don't necessarily know about. We did the solar probe.
Yes.
Out at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab.
So
cool.
Cool.
A lot of smart people out there.
Yeah.
And this probe it's Parker probe. It's going to the sun. They're launching it sometime this summer. Next summer. Well, I would be next summer. And it's going to the sun. So it'll be the first probe to get as close into the sun's corona, which I should know, but I didn't know. The corona is actually hotter than the surface of the sun. So when I say corona, remember we talk about the eclipse.
Yeah, I remember.
When the eclipse was 100%, what we saw was the Earth or the sun's corona. And I didn't know, I didn't realize that is actually hotter than the surface, and they have no idea why.
That's crazy that they don't know why. And I do remember that stat because during the eclipse, we did our special eclipse coverage. I was looking up some stats, and it was something like, I forgot the numbers now, so I don't want to botch it, but it was so many million times or whatever hotter, hundreds of millions, something crazy, and it's that outer border. And it's little things like that that you're not really aware of until you cover cool sciencey events like the eclipse. And the solar probe I had heard about with the NASA, or who's doing it? Not NASA.
It's Johns Hopkins.
Johns Hopkins. We, many months ago on one of our streams, we covered that because they announced it. And then you got to see sort of the start of it.
Yeah, well, it's built.
It's happening.
It's built. It's ready to go. It just has to go to, it'll go over to the Goddard Space Center, which is NASA. It has to go over there for further tests. It can't be done at Hopkins. And I was thinking about, we live in a really cool place where there's so much going on, and we drive by these buildings all the time, and we never know what the heck's going on inside of them. And so, I mean, I'm getting to go into these buildings that nobody gets to go into, and you see things like a spacecraft, a $1 billion project that started in the 50s. I mean, this thing started in the 50s. The idea is to do this. I know, and for them to come to completion with this, they were doing some last-minute testing. They will take it to Goddard, which I thought was funny. They're going to put it in a truck and drive it to Goddard. It's like $1 billion thing.
Oh, that is funny.
They'll take it to Goddard and put it in a truck, and they'll do some thermal testing on it. They're also going to do some sound wave testing on it, and they'll just put it in this huge chamber with incredible amounts of sound to simulate the rocket blasting off when it goes to space. It has to go towards the sun as opposed to away from the sun, which makes it a little bit more of a more complicated launch, and then it will slingshot around Venus. A lot of these probes and whatnot go out and they slingshot different planets to send them back out farther into space, and then they slingshot.
They use momentum.
Yes, exactly. Okay. They use the gravity of one planet to slingshot them out.
Okay.
And this one, since it's going towards the sun, and I don't completely understand all the physics in this, they will slingshot it around Venus 7 times. Is what it's going to do. So it's going to go Venus to the sun, and then back around, and then Venus again, and slingshot back in. And on its closest approach, I forget what it is, but that's when they're going to get their best data.
When it's on the closest approach to the sun.
Yeah, and it'll be kind of this oblong orbit around. So it'll get close to the sun twice, and then you know what I mean. But it's going to go around seven different times.
Wow, cool details.
Did they teach you that at Wake Forest?
He's always pranking on me for that.
I love Wake Forest.
You do? Any personal connection or?
Yeah, my cousin went there.
Oh, yeah, you do have a connection.
My friends are going there. My parents live in Greensboro.
Oh, yeah. We had that connection from the beginning. Yeah, Greensboro.
Right.
Aww.
So there you go.
Yeah, so little things like that you don't learn until you cover these science stories. And you get to do a lot of cool stuff. And you get to do cool, human interest stuff. I think it's cool to bring those stories to light. That's, to be honest, what I love about news and local news. So.
And I am all consumed with this documentary about Vietnam from Ken Burns.
And we were chatting about that. I'm glad you brought that up. Mom, I know if you're watching, you love it and you want to be watching it. And
Molly's mom watching?
Hey, Mom. No, but you love it. Some other people have told me.
I hate it. You hate it, but the history.
Yep. Good to be consumed by it.
Yeah, I had no idea what all happened there with this deal. So.
And so many people don't.
Eye-opening.
It's glossed over. Yeah.
Hard to watch, but it's eye-opening.
Good. So you're continuing with that.
I'm consumed by that when I get off work at night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. My kids are like, no, we don't want to watch that. My wife's like, stop talking about Vietnam.
Oh, funny.
But it's just, I think as you get older, you get much more into history. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very cool.
So there you are.
Good. Nice little update from Gary McGrady. Thanks, Gary.
Nobody asks questions on YouTube.
No, we don't have a lot of people chatting on YouTube today. But when we have them on Facebook, they'll be asking about the weather. So
I understand.
We'll push it another day. Well, that's it. We'll go back to the satellites. You can see, but.
We got Hurricane Maria now. Just breaking news. Just became
That's cool.
Just becoming a hurricane because I looked at the earlier report this morning and it wasn't a hurricane. So now it's a hurricane again. And then you've got just becoming a major Hurricane Lee out there, and I think 4th or 5th major. Harvey, Irma, Maria, Lee. That's 4. Maybe one more with major that's just escaping me. So 4th or 5th major. Just actually a little bit above average. I
Is
think
it
average would be 3 majors per
in a year,
per
in a season?
Yeah, per season.
Even
All
though
right,
it's
guys.
smaller, in like.
Yeah, that
Right,
doesn't
that doesn't matter.
Yeah, actually,
It's just the winds.
And as storms get more northerly, they just get bigger anyway. So if as Lee gets farther to the north, then he'll start getting a little bit bigger. So you can already see in this satellite, and I don't know if it's 6 or 12 hours, but it looks like a 6-hour loop. It's already beginning to get a little bit bigger in terms of its footprint, which is what happens as they get farther up into the latitudes.
All right.
More northerly latitudes.
Good stuff.
All right.
Yeah, Garrett. Thanks.
You bet. Have a great day,
So
everybody.
good. All right, you're off to your stuff today.
Enjoy the one more day of summer.
Okay, guys. We'll be back.
This was an unpleasant surprise. Top rate goes down from 39.6 to 35. The very wealthiest of Americans get even a bigger tax break. The high end, the 1%, they're doing great. God bless them. We're glad they're doing great. They don't need a tax break. Middle class people do. So look at what this plan does. It gives the huge tax cuts to the wealthiest and the biggest corporations and socks it to the middle class. Eliminating state and local deductibility is a blow to the wallet of millions of middle-class taxpayers across the country. In states like New York and California, doubling the standard deduction and eliminating the personal deduction will not make up for the loss that middle-class people, particularly in the suburbs, will not make up for the loss when you eliminate state and local deductibility. And what I'd say to the president and the Republicans, last time you tried to eliminate state and local deductibility and tax reform foundered, you had to eliminate that. Same thing will happen now. Lots of Republican congressmen in states like New York and California come from districts where the elimination of state and local deductibility hurts their core constituency, even with doubling the standard deduction. So Leader McConnell and Speaker Ryan argue this is a boon to wealthy taxpayers in blue states. It's not true. It's just not true. Here's another amazing thing. We don't know where this came from. They raised the bottom rate from 10 to 12%, the lowest rate on the poorest and working class Americans. So what the plan does is the top rate on the wealthiest comes down, and the bottom rate on working class families goes up. What kind of plan is this? Republicans will argue that they double the standard deduction so it covers the raise in the lower rate. Bunk. By repealing the personal exemption, Republicans are once again raising taxes on middle class and working Americans. A family of two on this framework with a household income of $45,000 could see their bill increase by $1,000. That's not helping the middle class. They're using fine print, hidden tax hikes on the middle class in order to give huge cuts to the wealthy. The plan will add anywhere from $5 to $7 trillion to our deficit. If it passes, it will only be a matter of time before Republicans start crying out, the deficit's so big, we've got to cut Social Security, we have to cut Medicare, Americans beware. That's what they do. Dramatically lower taxes on the wealthy, do it in an irresponsible way, and then they say the big deficit we just created forces us to cut Medicare and Social Security. This is all part of the hard right agenda. Cut taxes for the rich, blow up the deficit, decimate Medicare and Social Security. The tax plan makes clear Republicans are circling the wagons to do what they have tried to do for decades, go after Social Security and Medicare. To be clear, this hasn't always been the case. Going back to the last time when we reformed our tax code, no less of an authority than James Baker, former Republican Secretary, Treasury Secretary, said, quote, we must not let tax revenues decline and worsen the deficit. In other words, tax reform must be revenue neutral and should be judged on its own merits. Let's call that the Jim Baker rule. Tax reform must be revenue neutral, judged on its own merits. No dynamic scoring, no fake math. The Republicans used to believe in that. Middle-class Americans deserve tax relief. We Democrats want to provide it. But as we've said, tax reform should go through regular order. It should help the middle class, not the top 1%, and should not increase our deficit. And let me just say one more thing. By trying to put a plan through in a partisan way, through reconciliation, the Republicans are going to have the same problem with tax reform that they had with health care. They are going to decidedly push an unpopular plan. 70% of Americans do not want tax breaks for the wealthy or for big corporations. They're going to try to push that through. Health care ultimately failed. The repeal of health care, the Republican Trump care, ultimately failed because the public was against it. The public will be equally strong against this plan that is so perverse in helping the wealthy and hurting the middle class, and it will fail. My great friend, our tax expert, Senator Wyden.
Senator Schumer has said it very well, so let me just highlight a couple of additional points. The first is what has been released today makes a total mockery out of the president's pledge that he wanted tax relief to be for the working class and it wouldn't be for the wealthy. The fact is, we know the ultra wealthy get a $100 billion handout each time the corporate tax rate is cut by just 1 percentage point. Back of the napkin estimates show that the Trump plan on the corporate side will result in $1.8 trillion in tax cuts for the multinationals and the powerful CEOs. Then let's turn to the pass-through issue that the two of us feel so strongly about. This completely new, lunar crater size new loophole in effect takes a page out of Gordon Gekko's playbook. Pass-through status, Democrats have said again and again, is enormously important to small businesses, a cleaner, a garage, a restaurant. That's not what the Republicans are talking about.
Hi guys, checking in with you from the digital newsroom here. We're not going to keep it on politics all day, but kind of jumping around to give you what is the latest. So just so you know, if you are on the stream for the press conference regarding the investigation of the hate crime at American University, that's coming next at 1 o'clock. We'll have an update there and see what police have to say at that press conference. Also right now, there's an event with Black Americans for a Better Future going on, and so we're going to check in there, take you away from the Hill, and go to that event.
Please send me more races in my life, okay? Let me bring up Corey Lewandowski.
Thank you. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and you know, Reynard and Steve Gilchrist is somewhere in this room, right back there, from one of our favorite states, South Carolina, who's very good to us in the primary. Look, what I hate is what the mainstream media does very well. They label somebody without looking at the person. They label people based on what their perception of reality is and not the reality of what that person is. We have seen this through the entire tenure of this presidential campaign and now in the first 9 months of this administration. They've called Donald Trump a racist and a misogynist and a bigot and a person who hates everybody, and he asked someone to stand up for the flag, our great flag. He said, many people have died for the privilege to stand up and put your hand on your heart. And they said he's a racist for asking you to stand up for the flag. This is why the American people don't believe the mainstream media anymore. It's why if you go back and you look immediately following the general election, a survey was conducted and said 97% of the respondents said they didn't believe the media and they no longer allowed them to affect the impact of their vote on election day, because that's how wrong the media has been. But look, I gotta thank the black community, because it's very important to me. You guys won me a lot of money, and I'll tell you why. I love winning. I never get tired of winning. But I was on CNN one day against a colleague, a friend, David Axelrod. And the polling data had just come out in October that says Donald Trump will receive 1% of the African-American vote in this election cycle. And I said, what? 1%? I mean, look, even John McCain got 4%. Romney got 6%. We're going to beat these guys. These guys were terrible candidates, right? We get a better chance. And David Axelrod said to me, I will bet you dinner at any restaurant that Donald Trump does not get more than 1% of the African-American vote. I said, I'll take that bet, times 100. And Donald Trump went out and he got 8% of the African-American vote, which doesn't sound like much, but for a Republican candidate, it was the second highest that any Republican candidate has gotten since Bob Dole ran in 1996. And you know why he got that? For no other reason than he treats everybody the same. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, you're Hispanic or Asian. He wants to give everybody opportunity. And for entrepreneurs who are out trying to start businesses, you know, in this room, who employ tens of thousands of people, the government has been the problem and not the solution. It's time to change that. Let me tell you one quick story. The president gets elected, and it's December of 2015, and I called and I decide I don't want to work for the government. It's just not my thing. I'm really not a government kind of employee, right? I like to do my own little thing. I don't really fit well in those mold that they want you to show up every day for. So my business partner says, hey, Corey, could you do me a favor? Could you get us, we're going to start a business, could you get us an employment identification number? You've all done this to start your business, right? Because if you don't have an EIN number, you can't put money in the bank. You don't put money in the bank, they get you for money laundering. It's a bad way to start my business, right? So I say, sure, no problem. Let me go online. I go onto the IRS website, and I type in irs.gov, and it says between December 23rd and January 3rd, the IRS system is down and cannot issue employment identification numbers. Please call this 800 number so you can have help. So I call the number, and I'm sitting in my home in New Hampshire, and I wait 45 minutes on the phone, and a nice woman answers the phone. Her name was Mrs. Robbins, and she says, how can I help you? I said, I'd like to get an employment identification number so I can start a business, so I can start employing people, make money, be of value to the economy, etc. And she says, well, you know, our system is down online. So I said, yes, I understand, so that's why I'm calling you. She said, well, did you fill out the form? I said, no, but I'll be happy to. Can I email it to you? She says, oh, no, you cannot email it to me. I said, no? She says, could you fax it to me? I said, what? Fax? I said, look, I don't have a fax machine. No one under the age of 100 has a fax machine anymore, okay? I said, do you have email? It's this new thing that's been running around for about 25 years. I know the IRS has been following it a little bit, but do you have email? And she says, no, sir, we don't have email. I said, okay, Mrs. Robinson, let me ask you a question. If I can find a fax machine, which might be in the next town over, because I live in a rural little town in New Hampshire, nobody I know owns a fax machine. It'll take me a half hour to get there. You know, actually figure out how to use this machine again, because no one's used one in 25 years, and blow the dust off it, and it gets to your desk. How long will it take before you generate a 9-digit EIN number so I can start a business? She says, 7 to 10 business days. I said, excuse me? She says, 7 to 10 business days. I said, Mrs. Robbins, let me just ask you a question. I can't be the only person in this country, this great country, who wants to be an entrepreneur, wants to stand up a business so I can start employing people and giving back. How many businesses were started in our great country through the IRS between December 23rd and January 3rd? And she said, absolutely none. Zero. I hung up the phone. I called the president-elect of the United States. I said, sir, you're not going to believe this shit. I said, the government's closed. The government is closed for business. I said, this has been and continues to be the problem, is that the government thinks we work for them, not they work for us. It is now time with a business executive, an entrepreneur, if you will, who occupies the Oval Office, who understands what it takes to meet a payroll every day, what it takes to take risk, and understand as an entrepreneur how difficult it is for those people to maximize their credit cards so that they can make payroll, so that they can keep their lights on, so that they can have an office, all with the hopes and dreams that at some point their hard work will be rewarded and you'll grow your company from a one-person operation to a 250-person IT company or something even greater. The risk that entrepreneurs take are not unique to a race or an age or a demographic. It's what drives us and has driven our great country for 200 years. But the government has now gotten in our way. You go back and you talk to those small business owners who built big businesses and you ask them, would you have the opportunity to create the same business again? And almost to a person, they'd say, no, we couldn't, because the government rules and regulations are so prohibitive and so onerous that we couldn't comply with those same rules today that we did when we stood our business up 10, 20, or 30 years ago. But for the first time, this administration, for every new government rule that gets put into place, 16 government rules and regulations have been rescinded. It is high time that this president and the administration starts to understand that the small businesses of this country are the backbone. And the minority-owned small businesses are something that we should be embracing. We should be putting our arms around these communities, putting our arms around these leaders, and making sure not only do they have the access to capital that they need to be successful, these are the pillars of the community, the people that the members in the community who don't have a lot to look up to say, I want to be like. I want to be like the small business owner. I want to be like the person who worked hard.
All right, guys, we are switching it up. We are going down to Louisville, Kentucky right now. Press conference with the school officials at the University of Louisville. If you might have heard, after Rick Pitino was placed on administrative leave at this school. This should be coming up shortly, so we're going to stay right here for now, and then hopefully bring you back to that press conference at American University about the hate crime that they've been investigating. We're just looking for that source now. So we'll be back with that, but for now, down at the University of Louisville, for this news conference. So the athletic director and men's basketball coach, of course, Rick Pitino, some of you know, were placed on leave, and we're going to hear from them about that situation coming up next.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the University of Louisville. We're going to have a brief presentation today. You'll hear from Dr. Gregory Postal, who is the interim president of the university. You'll hear briefly from the chairman of our board of trustees, David Grissom, and we'll take a few questions. So we're getting ready to start right now, and here's Dr. Postal.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. The allegations in a criminal investigation being conducted by the United States Attorney's Office, Southern District of New York, and the Federal Bureau of Investigations are troubling to all of us. While the investigation is continuing and no charges have been filed against the University of Louisville or any of its employees, the allegations are serious. It is vital for this university to strictly adhere to NCAA rules and, of course, federal law. Doing nothing would be a tacit endorsement of unethical and criminal behavior. Board Chairman Grissom and I spoke to both Athletic Director Tom Jurich and head men's basketball coach Rick Pitino this morning and informed them of the following decisions. Effective immediately, Coach Pitino has been placed on an unpaid administrative leave. Coach Pitino's employment will be reviewed at a later date. We will continue throughout this process to follow university personnel policies. Effective immediately, Vice President for Intercollegiate Athletics Tom Jurich has been placed on a paid administrative leave. The leave will continue until the Board of Trustees has an opportunity to evaluate his continued employment at or before its regularly scheduled meeting on October 18th. One student athlete is being notified that he is being withheld from NCAA activities, inclusive of practices and games, indefinitely. This decision will protect the interests of both the student and the University of Louisville. We will work quickly to name an interim head men's basketball coach and an interim athletics director. We hope to have those announcements within 48 hours. Decisions regarding other coaches named as part of this investigation will be made by the interim athletics director. As I stated yesterday, we remain committed to cooperating fully with law enforcement and with the NCAA. It's important for all of us to remember that the University of Louisville continues to be a place where vital education takes place, where we perform cutting-edge research, and where we participate in marvelous community engagement activities. While this may be a dark day for the University of Louisville, better days are ahead. Thank you. Chairman Grissom?
I only want to add that the Board of Trustees unanimously support the actions taken today with respect to Coach Pitino and Tom Jurich. It was unanimous. Any questions?
We'll take just a few questions.
Dr. Postal, who was the player?
No names were provided in the criminal complaint, and so it would be inappropriate at this point for us to embellish the report as submitted to us by the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Dr. Postal, who was the difference between unpaid and paid between the two?
There are different employers for the two individuals. They have different contracts, and our goal in all processes is to honor the contracts of our employees and to honor the university's HR policies. As I indicated, we will be making that decision today and tomorrow, and we'll have an announcement this week about interim leadership positions.
Dr. Postal, the larger picture, what are you going to do if the university will win the NCAA sanctions? Do you think there'll be any ramifications happening with the death penalty or anything worthy with that?
You know, I don't think it's appropriate to speculate about those things. All I can tell you is that the University of Louisville is fully committed to transparency and to working with law enforcement, to working with the NCAA. We've done that all along in the issues we've been dealing with so far with the NCAA. So we will continue to cooperate and work with them through this process. I don't think we can speculate. Well, it bothers me a great deal, but I can't speculate at this point on what that means. Yeah. There'll be a discussion about that in conjunction with the criminal complaint that we have received, and announcements regarding the potential for other individuals will be made by the interim athletics director. I'm sorry, there were. Well, so this is a typical way that universities deal with a situation where there is an ongoing criminal investigation. The criminal investigation is not complete, and individuals at this institution have not been formally charged. So this is a typical response to that type of circumstance. The unpaid leave for Coach Pitino suggests a greater severity here. Why that? That could be your interpretation. Again, I'm just indicating that we are following our personnel policies and the individual's contracts. I have no way to know that. We have not been notified of such by the FBI or by the U.S. Attorney's Office. As an individual on an administrative leave, they are not able to function in their current roles during that period of administrative leave. What contact has the school had with the NCAA since this news broke yesterday? We notified them yesterday, and that was all that was necessary at this point. I'm sure there will be future conversations. Will the school conduct its own investigation, considering there are 2 coaches allegedly involved? We're seeking advice as to the appropriate way to do that. We want to make sure that anything we do is not against the policies of the U.S. Attorney's Office, and so we're seeking guidance about the appropriate way for us to look into this matter in parallel to their investigation. Can you expand upon the criteria that you'll use to judge whether or not Pitino will remain, and can you describe the decision-making process? I think that's a hard thing to do because as we go forward, information will be forthcoming about the investigation. We'll be learning more in the days and weeks ahead, and that will help inform future decision-making. We believe they have. They have not made direct contact with our office, but we understand they have been on campus. That was not a discussion that took place. Dr. Postal, I'm curious your initial reaction when you found the news, anger, embarrassment. Where did you come from when you learned of all this occurring? I would say that I was more angry than embarrassed. Obviously, embarrassment is part of it as well. But I think people who have watched what the University of Louisville has been busy doing in calendar year 2017 will understand that we have been working day and night, committed to make sure this place is a wonderful place for our students and our faculty and staff, and we're making a tremendous amount of progress. And when something like this happens, it makes me angry that we have more work to do to get where we're going to get. It's not going to prevent us from getting where we want to get, but it's another stumbling block, and yes, I was angry about it. I have not had a chance to do so yet. We're just working through the details of this as it's a actively emerging story. Again, I can't embellish on the criminal complaint that we have received because that's the role of the U.S. Attorney's Office to provide that level of detail. So are you guys aware of those names? We have information about that, yes. What are you looking for in terms of the basketball? I think we're looking for someone with integrity, someone with a knowledge of the sport, a knowledge of the sport, someone who can have the respect of the players and help us move along. We've got talented players. That hasn't changed, and so there's no reason this team can't have a good season. Dr. Postal, to be completely clear, are you and Chairman Grissom leaving open the possibility that Tom Jurich and Rick Pitino could return to their jobs at some point? An administrative leave is an administrative leave. It is not a dismissal from a permanent position. So that is one of the possible outcomes, yes. Did either man offer a resign? No, they did not. Chairman Grissom, did you meet with the Board of Trustees privately to vote? You said that the Board of Trustees was unanimously behind this decision. Have you had a meeting in the last 24 hours?
We have not. I called everyone on the board within the last 24 hours to get their position on it. These are telephonic conversations, no meeting.
What was your reaction to hearing the news? Because covering Board of Trustees meetings and foundation meetings, you knew you were starting to get out from the cloud of the situation with the foundation, and now this.
Well, I came home to my wife. I'm sorry. I came home last night and said once again to my wife, you can't make this up. So it was terrible disappointment. I really felt like we were on the trajectory that was positive and could take the university to the next level. So like Dr. Postal, I'm disappointed. There's a little bit of anger. It's not a happy day for the university.
Dr. Postal, there are several students here and watching, and they want to see leadership from you in this moment. And a lot of them said that leadership means cleaning house. What do you say to those students?
Well, I think it should be obvious that that's what we're doing. I mean, we've taken an action sufficient to bring a whole room full of media people together to make a very clear statement that we're not going to tolerate what we have learned about. So my answer to them would be we are doing everything in an appropriate way and will continue to do so as we learn more about the situation. There'll be an interim appointment made this week. Well, until there's resolution to the current situation one way or the other.
Okay, yeah. Thank you all. That's all we have time for today. Thank you. And I do have some news releases.
Wow, so some really interesting news, guys, in the sports world there. Rick Pitino out as head coach of the men's basketball program at the University of Louisville. And so what happened here really was yesterday, the FBI alleged that a coach found from public research in the University of in Kentucky at Louisville paid $100,000 to a basketball recruit's family. The school later acknowledged that the men's basketball recruiting was part of the investigation. So Rick Pitino has been tied, and there it is. We still have this shot up of the University of Louisville to this. And looks like the press conference is over. But anyway, that's the story. He is one of the highest paid coaches in basketball. He made something like $7.8 million as a coach, and I remember him growing up as the coach of PC, Providence College, Boston University, later the Celtics, and of course Kentucky, and now Louisville. And so it's big news there. So it sounds like he is off with he is out with no pay. The other faculty member, I believe, said he is on administrative leave with pay. So some interesting questions there. It sounds like the university is very disappointed. This is sure to make really big sports news for sure for those of you guys who are interested in that. Effectively, he's been fired. So they're going to be looking for an interim replacement, they said. Meanwhile, guys, we said we were going to bring you the press conference at American University. Unfortunately, something happened with our source, and we don't have it here on our YouTube channel, but you can find it on our Facebook page. We're streaming it live right now. It's actually going on right now. Fortunately, we couldn't get it in on our digital newsroom here in this system. So check it out on our Facebook page, guys, fox5dc.com. Like we mentioned, Tom Fitzgerald, our reporter, is there covering it for more details on that hate crime and what the university is doing about it. But meanwhile, while we queue some other stuff up, take a live look at Air Force One. President Trump is on his way to Indiana to talk tax reform. He'll be speaking at the Indiana State Fairgrounds and Event Center in Indianapolis. So take a look.
Time I endorsed him, and he ran a good race, but Roy ran a really great race. And I know what they did with Rich, and they used him very much in the campaign, but he works hard, and I'm sure things will work out. I just wanted to say, though, on health care, we have the votes for health care. We have one senator that's in the hospital. He can't vote because he's in the hospital.
Talking about Cochran?
He can't vote because he's in the hospital. We have two other votes that are coming, and we will have them. But the problem is we can't have them by Friday because the reconciliation ends on Friday. So we'll have to do it in January and February. But I feel we have the votes. I'm almost certain we have the votes. But with one man in the hospital, we cannot display that we have them. Plus, some people want to go through a process just to make themselves feel better. That's okay.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Is Mitch McConnell in trouble? It's about how your aides are spending taxpayer money on this phone booth.
We're talking about health care. We're talking about
health care. Tom Price spent a lot of money on that charter plane. Is that cool?
I was looking into it, and I will look into it, and I will tell you personally, I'm not happy about it. I am not happy about it.
What are you going to do about it, Mr. President?
I'm going to look at it. I am not happy about it, and I let him know it.
Do you have confidence? What about Mitch McConnell? Is he in trouble?
You'll have to ask senators.
Do you have confidence?
No, you're going to have to ask senators. So here's what I'm just saying. We're going right now to Indiana. We're going to introduce a tax plan that's the largest tax cut essentially in the history of our country. It's going to be something special. You already know some of the numbers. We're going to give you some of the additional numbers. But on health care, we have the votes. We can't do it now because we have somebody in a hospital. And we have great respect for that gentleman, by the way. He's a fantastic man.
But he was a yes.
We are going to do, he was a yes, that's why.
Why does it matter? I mean,
because he has to come here and vote. Because he can't come here and vote. In other words, he can't come here and vote because he's in the hospital. So here's the story. Wait, let me just say, yeah, he's in the hospital. So we're going to do it in January or February because, as you know, we have the votes, but we can't go longer than Friday. What we're going to do is we will do the block grants, we will do the health care, we will get a longer process going for the couple of people that did want to see more process, even though they're a yes vote. But very importantly, I am also, during this period of a couple of months, I'm also going to meet with Democrats, and I will see if I can get a health care plan that's even better. So I will negotiate with Democrats, but from the Republican standpoint, we have the votes. We'll vote in January, February, or March.
Are you considering an executive order?
I am considering an executive order on associations, and that will take care of a tremendous number of people with regard to health care. And I'll probably be signing a very major executive order where people can go out, cross state lines, do lots of things, and buy their own health care. And that will be probably signed next week. It's being finished now. It's going to cover a lot of territory and a lot of people, millions of people.
Can I ask a question about the travel ban?
John, go ahead.
Are you confident, sir, that Mitch McConnell can get health care across the finish line?
I think we're there now, John. I'll be honest. You look at the statement put out by Alaska, right? You saw that, by Lisa. You look at the other couple of statements. You know, we're only one off, maybe two. But we can't vote now, John. You probably didn't hear me because, as you know, one of our yes votes is in the hospital. I can't take him out of the hospital.
I'm just wondering if you have confidence in Senator McConnell.
I do have confidence in it, yes. I do have confidence.
Even though he couldn't get
But it's really not up to me, it's up to the Senate. But I do have confidence in him. I will say they used him in the race, and I was very honored by the way I was treated in the race, but they used him in the race. John, they used him in the race. And, you know.
On taxes, Mr. President, on tax reform, does your plan help the wealthy too much? There's criticism that
my
you
plan is for the working people, and my plan is for jobs.
So you wouldn't benefit under your tax plan?
No, I don't benefit. I don't benefit.
You don't think more people benefit?
In fact, very, very strongly, as you see, I think there's very little benefit for people of wealth.
The estate tax repeal is a benefit.
The state tax is one of the things, and that's, if you look at it, for farmers and people with small business.
Mr. President, what do you say to the things that more and more Republicans have? You think long to be day. You think that there was a member of Congress who doesn't deserve to have that. You use the phrases red and yellow to talk about people.
I don't see it, but we'll talk to you about that at a different time. So here's the point.
Are you worried that he's so incendiary, that he's such a firebrand that says these controversial things?
The point is this. Healthcare, we have it. We have the votes. Because of reconciliation, we have to wait till January, February, or March, which we'll do. But in the meantime, I will negotiate with Democrats to see if we can make a bipartisan bill. Yes,
One more on tax cuts, sir. 20% corporate rate a red line for you? I know you say
Very much a red line. In fact,
What about 15%?
I wanted to start at 15 so that we got 20. It just, the numbers were, 15 was so low we didn't take in the revenue. But I wanted 15 so we got 20. 20 is my number, so I'm not negotiating that number.
May I ask a question about...
I am not going to negotiate. That's the number I wanted to get to. I wanted to start at 15 to get there. We really had to start there because of the complexity of the numbers. But 20 is a perfect number.
On Puerto Rico, Mr. President, why not lift the Jones Act like you did in Texas and
Well,
Florida?
we're thinking about that, but we have a lot of shippers and a lot of people people that work in the shipping industry that don't want the Jones Act lifted. And we have a lot of ships out there right now. And I will tell you, the governor was very generous yesterday with his statement. And so was the mayor of San Juan, very, very generous with their statement. So we have a lot of people, and I'm going there on Tuesday, as you probably have heard. And Puerto Rico is a very difficult situation. I mean, that place was just destroyed. That's not a question of, gee, let's dry up the water, let's do this or that. I mean, that place was flat. That is a really tough situation. I feel so bad.
May I ask a question about the updated travel ban?
Yeah.
First of all, can you explain to us why Sudan was removed? And second of all, how does the travel ban work in North Korea that doesn't allow their people out of the country?
The people allowed certain countries, but we can add countries very easily and we can take countries away.
What did Sudan do
as far
right?
as the travel ban is concerned, whatever it is, I want the toughest travel ban you can have. So I'll see you in Indiana. I'm going to go over some more points that have not been talked about. Are you all going? Is everyone going?
If you invite us, is there room?
Mr. President, can I
Is
ask
there
one more
room
on the
for
Hurt on the NFL story? Because I know this is something you've been talking about a lot. You said back here in Charlottesville that those folks had the right to protest. Why doesn't Colin Kaepernick have his First Amendment right?
I think the NFL is in a box. I think they're in a really bad box. You look at what's happening with their ratings, you look at what's going, I mean, frankly, the only thing that's doing well in the NFL is the pregame. Because everybody wants to see what's going on. The NFL is in a very bad box. You cannot have people disrespecting our national anthem, our flag, our country, and that's what they're doing. And in my opinion, the NFL has to change. Or you know what's going to happen? Their business is going to go to hell.
Are there First Amendment? Do you oppose protesting on the side of the NFL, Mr. President? Are there very fine people on the side of the NFL?
No, not at all. No, no. We have to respect our national anthem. We have to respect our country. And they're not respecting our country. And most importantly, the fans agree with me. I mean, largely the fans agree. But we have to show total respect for our national anthem, for our flag, for our country. We have to do it. And you can, there are plenty of places, and there are plenty, personally, when they're protesting during a football game, I think they can find better places, but they cannot do it during the national anthem. I am going to see, I'm looking at that very closely. I am not happy with it. I will tell you, I am not happy with it.
All right, guys, so that's President Trump en route, talking more about the NFL and that same topic, of course, mentioning Puerto Rico against a backdrop, of course, of Marine One. This was playback from earlier, and bottom left of your screen earlier, we just saw Air Force One take off from Joint Base Andrews on the way to Indiana. So he's going to Indianapolis to discuss this, but quite a long little session there with the press, and he kept taking questions. Again, more statements on the NFL, saying that it's sort of in a box, that they're going to be done if they keep this up. So some strong statements about that same topic. Meanwhile, guys, I am trying to queue up the video from American University that we've been tracking about the investigation of the hate crime on campus this morning. We're going to stay right here with a little bit of this video as long as we have it, and then I'm going to take you over to hear what some of the Senate Democrats had to say this morning about tax reform and healthcare, two other topics that Trump has been discussing today.
Yeah, audio. I'm literally going to raise hold.
big, powerful company opens accounts in their name without their consent and leaves them vulnerable to fraud by failing to secure their personal data. As the former Attorney General, I know that the ability of every American to take companies to court is crucial to supplement state and federal law enforcement. When we let ordinary Americans have their day in court, it puts another cop on the beat to ensure that Wall Street can't gouge borrowers with tricks and traps. Let's just take two recent examples that you've heard about. In Nevada, Wells Fargo and Equifax are two of the top 3 companies cited in complaints sent to the CFPB. Wells Fargo, we all have heard this, have created accounts, false accounts for customers and attempted to bind consumers in arbitration clauses, even for those phony accounts they never requested in the first place. With at least 54,000 Wells Fargo fake accounts created in Nevada alone, we need these protections that the CFPB now more than ever has implemented. And in the last 2 weeks, we learned that a cyber breach at Equifax led to the release of sensitive personal data for 143 million Americans, or nearly half of our country. In the short time that Equifax breach was disclosed, my office alone has received almost 4 dozen constituent letters expressing outrage and seeking justice over this unprecedented scandal. What am I to tell them? That they can't go to court? That they're now forced into arbitration, which they probably won't pursue for the very reasons that you just heard Senator Warren explain? And adding insult to injury, Equifax tried to hide a forced arbitration clause as a precondition for those victims of the data breach that we're seeking to help. And only in the face of tremendous public pressure did the company remove that unfair clause. Even still, Equifax uses a forced arbitration clause in its general terms of service and is lobbying Congress to kill the CFPB's rule. We cannot let these companies, these big companies, off the hook, not now, not ever. And we have to continue to fight against the rescission of the CFPB rule. It gives Main Street, if we are allowed to do that, it gives individuals a fighting chance against Main Street. It gives individuals a fighting chance against those big corporations who don't care that they're making millions of dollars off of individuals. And now that the rule is finalized, it enjoys strong support, as you've heard from my colleague. Senator Reid talked about the American Legion. The American Legion had their national convention in Reno in August, and I was home during that period of time. And it was at that convention they adopted the resolution supporting the Consumer Bureau's rule, saying it is, quote, extremely unfair to bar service members, veterans, and other consumers from joining together to enforce statutory and constitutional protections in court. And as you've heard, the American Legion is joined by the military coalition in support of this rule, whose 32 members include the veterans of foreign wars and associations representing the Navy, Army, Air Force, and Marines. And in addition to this broad range of group, we also have 11 separate legal experts from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, who wrote to Congress to endorse the benefits of this CFPB rule. Big companies are trying to silence our constituents, and we cannot let it happen. So we are here today standing up against those big companies and for our consumers and for Americans and their right to access our court system. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I'm going to jump in here and bring you over to that forum that we were telling you about at American University after police have been investigating this hate crime that occurred yesterday. Apparently 10 or more than 10 Confederate flags have been placed across campus in this sort of poster like format, and they've identified a suspect as well. But right now there is sort of a conference and open forum about this going on. So we're going to jump in there a little bit late, already in progress.
What tangible action items can we hear from you all? Because I haven't heard anything of that sort.
And I also want to point out that all of these incidents are targeting Black people, and we have to stop saying this is an everybody problem because it's clearly a Black student problem. And we need to address it as such. Black students always have to share all of our spaces with everybody, and it's not fair. And while we're always down to join the fight with everybody else, people have to start joining our fight as well.
So thank you so much for your comment, and I share, as I'm sure many of the faculty of color who I've met since I came, about diversifying the faculty, and I think that's something that we've already been talking to the administration about, and I think that's something we'll continue to talk to them about. And I'm sorry? Oh, I was about to get to that. And so I think in terms of the students, I think you should basically be clear about what it is precisely that you want. And I think in terms of diversifying the faculty, and I think that would help us, you know, as we have these sort of conversations with the administration, and with people who I actually think are trying to diversify the faculty. On another hand, I also want us to know, because I think I completely agree with you that Black students, particularly as a result of these hate attacks, are bearing the brunt of it. But I just want everybody to know, just so we can be precise, that when I came out of my room last night and I saw these posters, they were below the Center for Israeli Studies. And so that's why I mentioned Jewish students too. And so I just want everybody to know that this is happening not only to Black students and students of color, but even Jewish students as well. And then finally, I think as it relates to safety, and I think this is a very difficult issue, because on the one hand, if the administration, if the police force was to institute a series of cameras all over campus, as well as there are other campuses in which you're not able to basically walk onto it. There are other campuses, like I went for my PhD at Temple, where you literally have to show ID in order to get in every building. And the idea was that that is what makes people safe. And so I think we have to think very clearly about how we can make this campus safe, while simultaneously not feeling like those very Black students are being surveilled more by these cameras, and presumably there's a greater police presence that potentially could do something to those very students. Not that I think that they would, but clearly, you know, you just never sort of know when you have an intense police presence anywhere. And so I always sort of push back about more cameras or more police. I don't necessarily know whether that's the solution, but if there's another solution that wouldn't involve more police and more cameras, then those are the type of constructive proposals that I'm actually interested to sort of hear today, as well as talk about ways in which we can get this Black space for Black students. We can figure out ways to diversify the faculty and continue to diversify the student body. And that's the sort of change that I'd like to be sort of a part of here at AU, which is precisely why I came.
Thank you. And, you know, I hear, and I think one of the things, you know, as we are on the path and the journey of action, being on that journey and knowing that we always need to do more, should do more, and can do more. And the issue you raised of what you see, which is I think why you asked folks to stand up. It's because of what you see and what that means. And appreciate and understand that, and had that actually brought home to me in a very real way in the last 2 weeks, just in the issues of gender, where I attended a university and was part of a scholarship that was dominated by white males for for over 100 years. And just even the idea that portraits would be put up of women and people of color so that you actually see something that looks like you. And so that we're working on, and we hear you. And 44% of the folks that came in tenure line this year were people of color. To your point, the African American issue, we hear you. It was 1 in 4 in terms of that. The challenge is that's big number and great movement forward, but it's on a small base, and we understand and know that in terms of how it feels and what you see. And so it continues to be a priority for us in terms of that diversity. I think hopefully folks understand that, our vice president selection, Dr. Ah, as a member of our cabinet and our team, when I came, I recognized and realized what a great person we had who'd been at this part of this university for so long. These are issues that we hear, we want to continue to hear. Those are actions. I hear you. I hear you on the action. We hear that, and some of those steps have been taken over time. I would also just say about the space and that issue, what we want to get to is a place where everybody feels included wherever you are on the campus. I know it's not the same. I think the question we are hearing, we are continuing to work and look for the spaces. And I think over the summer we've worked in terms of some of the spaces to have our student groups together. And Dr. All, do you want to speak at all to it?
I'm going to take the next question. Please go ahead.
Yes, so actually, Sydney, I wanted to comment on that. So, hi everyone, I'm Taylor Dumpson, Student Government President. And what I wanted to mention was, so for many students, you all don't know that like student government, all of the executive board, we were on campus literally all summer. So while everyone else had the opportunity to go home and to relax and kind of debrief after everything, we were on campus every single day. So I first want to thank President Burwell, I want to thank Fanta Ah, I want to thank Dan Nichols, I want to thank Orion from ADL, I want to thank Professor Kendi, and I want to thank Provost Bass for having this town hall, and especially with President Burwell, this being your first time dealing with a bias-related incident on a campus of American University. I think you showed our students that you genuinely care, because that is something that we have not seen in the past. But what I wanted to get back to is over the summer, Dr. Ah, can I talk about that? Cool. Over the summer, we pushed for an initiative. So for students that are aware of the student government campaign that we had, we pushed for having a space for students of color specifically, but also to have a space for students to gather to talk about issues of multiculturalism and equity. That's something that is happening. The space actually exists. And I want you to know that because we busted our behinds all summer working on it. It's called the Hub. It's called the Hub for Organizing Multiculturalism and Equity. This space will be opened up later on this semester, hopefully within the next upcoming weeks here at AU. That will be on the 3rd floor of the Mary Graydon Center. It's got a refrigerator, it's got couches, it's got sofas. It has everything that would be stereotypically considered in a brave space. Additionally, we worked with members of administration, members of university leadership, specifically like Calvin Haney, to work to develop a multicultural students organization space so that students, specifically students from underrepresented traditional minority groups, would have the ability to be in an office space to communicate with one another. Not that that's going to solve the problem. We all realize that we have a space issue first and foremost on the campus of American University. So one, creating a whole student center and wiping out an entire floor and creating that is not something that can happen overnight, but it is something that I hope and that I will be pushing for President Burwell to include in her upcoming plan for university moving forward, whether it's a 5-year plan, whether that's a 10-year plan. But what I wanted to bring the attention to the university administration about is on May 5th, the student government published the notes from the town hall that we had posted on May 4th. The statement said, action steps identified to move AU community forward. In this document, there were over 20 different statements and different things were brought up at that town hall. That town hall had over 400 people that were students, that were faculty, that were staff, that were alumni, that were members of administration there. On those, there was the requests were an increase in campus security, specifically in the number of cameras. In that conversation that I've had with Phil, we have 600 cameras on campus. So I am glad to see that we have camera footage of that. But there was another request that we had, which was an increase in public safety patrols at night. The Mary Graydon Center is a center that is open 24/7 for students. It is open 24/7 in general. So how can we make sure that these spaces are secure for our students? Additionally, we asked for increased resources and spaces for minority students on campus. That is something that I realize is in the works. But additionally, we asked for structural racism training, whether that is for faculty, staff, and students. So what I'm going to encourage administration to do is to create a module that is a cultural competency module, not that the students have to create, so that we're not professors. We cannot teach the university. We cannot teach our classes. We can't teach our professors. We don't have those degrees yet. Like, I just have a high school degree right now. Like, I don't have my bachelor's yet. Another one was to utilize the classroom to teach structural racism and thinking about how we decolonize those conversations. Protecting students from hate crimes committed by people outside of the university community. That was a statement that we put in here that was a very strong concern. So when you hear students talk about safety, and we hear students talk about the fact, yes, we are a private institution, and like our peer institutions, we are an open campus, but that doesn't mean that just anybody can walk on our campus and do things like this in broad daylight, in rooms that are full of cameras. That's not acceptable. Additionally, we asked for bias-related incidents to be a stand-alone conduct violation, to have a consistent AU alert procedure for hate crimes. I'm glad to see that public safety issued an alert, but what would have been extremely helpful is when public safety was notified last night, that there was a statement sent out to students via text, via something, that said, we are investigating an incident that happened that is bias related on the campus of American University. More information will be to come, because that's what students were looking for. Most of us, myself included, found out because of social media. Additionally, we asked for an increased disclosure on case info and results of sanctionings when bias-related incidents happen, when they are proven to be from students, as well as a regular reporting of bias-related incidents from the Office of Campus Life. And the last thing I want to get to is the topic of campus climate survey data. I know I have talked to many of you sitting on the stage multiple times about the importance of releasing that information to the student body. That should be something that is regularly and annually announced before students get to campus, so that the incoming students don't have to deal with this. I'm a senior, right? And there has not been 1 year without one semester where there hasn't been a bias-related, motivated attack on Black students, students of color, and students from other marginalized communities. So what we're asking for is really, instead of talking about it, we're looking for action steps. And I know that we have a new university administration. We know that we're heading in a different direction. But what can you say to students that this is their freshman year, has not even been a month into the university? They have not yet experienced AU. But this is their first interaction, because this is the life that students of color on a regular basis, specifically Black students, have had to deal with time and time and time again. So I ask that the university is transparent, extremely transparent, in releasing the campus climate survey data that has been traditionally used for internal purposes only to reevaluate how we function as a university. But students cannot come onto a college campus that is their own community and be uncertain about what information is regarding the campus climate, because we know how we feel, but without the university telling us what that data actually says, speaks to our experiences. So I would really encourage those things that I mentioned to be taken into extreme consideration.
So I want to quickly respond to a couple of the things that Taylor mentioned, because we have spent quite a bit of summer with many of you on a range of things. I want to address this piece about the training and the intercultural competence, and you're absolutely correct. It is not the job of the students to do that, and we are very aware of that. In terms of that, the range of things that have been taken, and not just this year, but are the cumulative effect, and that continue to be amplified, are the faculty development piece, which our Senior Vice Provost for Academic Affairs and a team of others have been working on, whereas the train-the-trainer models and so forth, there's been a range of those, and those are some of the things we've shared and that we're going to continue to share on the faculty side with our Center for Teaching, Research, and Learning. So it is not that we've been sitting, it's that we've been literally going at those. In relation to the question of training of staff, our Human Resources Office came up, and they've been doing this before, but they've ramped up the range and the sort of level of diversity and inclusion training that is going on, so that we will be able to track who and how and so forth, and continue to provide guidance about that. That is something that we're keeping track of and that we're going to continue to ramp up in terms of the staff development side as well as the faculty development side. Your question about having the data available around bias related incident. I've made a commitment to that, and I think you know me, and that information will be available once we get to the end of the semester. We will be able to say, here's where we're seeing the trends and so forth. And it's not just to say here where we're seeing the trends. It's to also understand what are actually effective intervention strategies around those elements, so that it's not just a report that is released and that is there. The conversation or the campus climate, I hear you, and I hear that that is something that we need to work on. We had talked about getting a group of students first to understand the context and so forth, to then realize and understand what is the best mechanism for that dissemination of information. And I certainly understand that that's been something that you would like to see happen more quickly. So I just wanted to respond to a couple of those things. But I think the more important message as well is that throughout that time, it's been an effort of working together and keeping ourselves accountable for what those changes needs to be at all levels. So I wanted to just respond to that. Yeah. There's someone in the back. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm
then
Edme.
right there.
I'm a freshman here at American University, and I've lived most of my life overseas, so this is a complete new environment for me. I haven't been a minority population for a long time, and I can speak on behalf of a lot of international people of color. This is a completely new environment, and to be a freshman as well, I'm not adjusted to AU as a community, and it seems as over the summer and the orientation process that we've been presented a certain type of AU, and now that we're here on campus and an incident like this has occurred, and a similar incident like this occurred last year to Taylor, I feel that a lot of what can we do for you is being asked of people of color, but right now the only thing that I personally feel like will make me feel better is to understand what the university, as you guys are in a higher position of power, can do something about it, what you want to do. I understand, and I'm very grateful that everyone here is saying that they're willing to support us, and I'm grateful that everyone is willing to support us, but I want to know what's going to happen. I want to know what actions the university intends to take, and I'm sure maybe you guys have had that discussion about what you intend to do, but right now it doesn't seem like it's being verbalized, and I feel like that's the only thing that's going to make me feel comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Brenner, I'm the director of the Center for Israel Studies, and as many of you have seen, and Ibram said before, we were, of course, also targeted last night. I'm personally really shocked by this. I'm someone who has taught for 20 years in Germany. I always thought these attacks would happen there. They never happened in my 20 years there. But I also know that, and again, I want to say what the administration really has said before, that we will come out stronger from this. These are not only attacks against the black students and colleagues, against the Jewish students and colleagues. This really is against the spirit of AU. And I think the action that already has been taken, in my view, the perhaps strongest sign happened 2 hours before the event when the new center was launched. And I think the center, which Ibram said a few words about, is something which any university would be proud of. And it's also something where all of the students in this community can participate. So what I would say is part of the response really happened before the deed. And I think that the university really has gone the right way in this respect. And I feel as part of the Jewish community of this campus and as the director of the Center for Israel Studies, feel very proud of the actions that has been taken. Now, these are not all the action that should be taken, that's for sure. However, I think that's an amazing start, how we started this semester, and if we continue this way, we can be strong enough to defend all of these actions, even if there are more and nastier ones to follow. So I also just want to say actions in this respect have been taken already.
I want to go back to your question, which is what are the actions? One of the things that I know as students you want us to be able to say is that this will never ever happen. I cannot stand here in this room and being honest with you and say that that is the case, because unfortunately we're living in a world and we're living in a time that these actions are happening. So that's one piece I want to talk about. With that said, there was the real question about safety. And I really want to sort of put this question back to the community. And that question is, what is the right balance for community so that we talked about cameras, that's been done. We've talked about more public safety presence. There's been more public safety presence. We've talked about the fact that, as Phil mentioned, with the public safety presence, we know what's the value of community policing. And having people who are from your community, who understand the community, are in a better place and so forth. We are very, very conscious of the fact that we do not want to be that campus where every time you turn, what you see is police presence. By the same token, so I want to understand from our community, what is that right balance for the safety? That's what I'd like to get some answers to from our community. MM, I think you have yeah. So I just need to understand more about that.
Okay, so if we're going to talk about police right now, as someone who has actually gotten my ass beat by police, it does not make me feel better to see a bunch of cops on campus. Not at all. I don't feel safer. No need to applause. I don't feel safer. I don't feel happier. I don't feel nicer. I feel worse. My first day back on campus, I sit on the side on the ledge of Catson every single day just to sing my music and chill. For 3 years now, I'm a freaking senior. And what happens? 4 squad cars rolling up on my ass. For what? For what? I don't understand that. I've seen more police officers on this campus, yet this man was able to walk around. Y'all could stop me for literally just existing, being here, but you couldn't find him. I'm sorry, I'm not buying this. And on top of that, the way that you guys are also connected with MPD in the community, I have even more problems. This isn't community policing, this is just MPD on our campus in a smaller form. And I don't mess with MPD. I don't mess with cops. So if we're gonna talk about community policing, it doesn't look like this. First of all, my police will not wear uniforms. That's just one thing. Number one. Number two, also, there needs to be a check and balance between students and AEPD. Point, period, blank. There's no reason, especially in this age of police brutality. And that just goes on to a further thing on this campus with every issue. Students need to know what is going on. There needs to be transparency. There needs to be different, either subset core sets of students who volunteer to take this time to do that. Because many other students have been doing this for years. And I'm really freaking tired, y'all. I'm at this point, this university, there's feelings. And at this point as well, this also isn't even just an AU issue, this is DC. This same group was plastering these posters all throughout the summer. While y'all were gone, my black ass was here, and people were posting immigrant flyers, anti-immigrant flyers, and anti-RB, all these weird things all over throughout the summer. No one's cared until now. The big thing is that AU, you guys need to decenter yourself from this conversation because it's not all about you. This shit is still going on off campus. And what's worse is that they're killing us and they're fighting us. So my bigger question really is, how is the AU community going to do what needs to be done on this campus, but also connect it to the issues that are going off campus, as well as considering that AU does have issues with that, like our board of trustee members, who also have some of them are the biggest developers here in DC and pushing gentrification. I might lose my home in a couple of months because of them, who knows? Can we talk about those type of things? How are we gonna sit here and talk about changing structural racism, but we're also contributing it in our way of doing investments and just interacting with our DC community?
So now I think each of you have a sense of what our class is like when she comes to class. You know, many of the things that she said I completely echo, and I just want to say that I think this is the balance that I was trying to sort of get at as it relates to a more intensive police presence will make it more likely that that type of person will not be able to do this type of act. But then at what cost is that more intensive police presence, with all due respect to the cops in the room? You know, as somebody of color who's been harassed and brutalized by police and racially profiled, you know, that's not the type of, I don't see that as being more safe, right? And so that's why I was just getting us to sort of think through, like, how do we create a mechanism which we simultaneously feel more safe without potentially having to create more surveillance and more police. I just want to say very quickly, as it relates to the center, that ideally what we will be able to create here at AU, first and foremost, there's no other anti-racism center on a college campus in the world. This was the first campus that was willing to basically engage in direct anti-racist work. And I think, you know, and that's not saying that this campus is perfect, right? That's not saying that administrators or deans or the faculty who supported this effort are perfect, but that is saying something. And I think we should, I just want everybody to know that and appreciate that. But know that whenever you are doing something great, whenever you're pushing the envelope, whenever you're succeeding, whenever you are becoming SGA President Taylor, people are not going to like that. And so then what do? They figure out ways to instill fear, to terrorize you. And so for me, that's why when I found out what happened in the spring, it did not faze me when I understood the context of why it happened. So why does this happen? Why does this continue to happen at AU among these black students, among these students of color? And then I started to learn about what these students were doing. What these students were doing, and that was causing people to feel threatened. And in causing people to feel threatened, that's precisely why they continue to do these things at this campus. And so for me, I actually wanted to be at a place in which people feel threatened by what these black students were doing, by what other students of color were doing. And that actually attracted me to this institution. And I just want to say, you know, as it relates to the center, ideally, we would be able to create these research teams that would be able to bring to AU on an annual basis. Let's say if we had research teams of 10 people in 6 areas: justice, environment, education, health, politics, and I'm forgetting one. It's just been a long night. I didn't get that much sleep. And we would be able to bring 10 economics, and we would be able to bring 10, that's 60 scholars, policymakers, activists, advocacy, people who are instituted and concerned and passionate about bringing about racial change. We'd be able to bring him to AU on an annual basis and engage in national and international studies that are seeking to undermine the very problems that we are talking about today. And these people would be able to teach courses, very specialized courses that you would be able to take, that you would be able to be part of these sort of national and international conversations. Like, this is why I came here. And I knew that this would threaten people. And so I personally kind of expected what happened last night. But then I simultaneously know that these are the types of things, when I was 18 years old, I was horrified by what happened at FAMU. And I had to realize through my own sort of maturity, that is what happened when you're black in this society and you strive. This is what happens to you. And you should not let this slow you down. And that's what I was trying to sort of put forward. But again, that's from the standpoint of how you're feeling about all of this. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to push AU to become better at diversifying the faculty, at creating spaces for students, as diversifying the students, as doing many of these different initiatives. And it's sort of two different issues while simultaneously the same issue. And so I just wanted to sort of say that.
Hello, everyone. I'm Zaria Morvan, president of the School of Communication Student Council. So first and foremost, I want to say to my students of color in the room, in the area, and on this campus, you are validated, you matter, and I love you. That's something that I haven't heard today. I want to address something that's different. I hear all these things about this does not represent who we are as a school, and this is not the spirit of AU, but if somebody who does not go here, who is by no means affiliated with this university, feels comfortable and bold enough to walk onto this campus to spread their hate, then that means that there's something in the culture here that is allowing that and making it seem that those actions are acceptable. I want to challenge the AU community as a whole to be better and to do better. I mean, look at this room right now. I would love all the students of color to stand up if you feel comfortable. Okay, well, I'm looking at this room. This is an issue that first and foremost affects students of color, and we can't even be in the majority in this room. That's a problem. And I'm tired of hearing every day about the little things that students are dealing with on this campus, students of color. I'm tired of hearing about this professor in SPA that is spewing hate, justifying slavery, invalidating students of color's experiences, and when I ask them what they're doing about it, they're saying, oh, he's receiving counseling. Why are you wasting resources on this man? What he needs to be receiving is unemployment. What we need to do as a community is to show that these actions and these ways of thinking do not belong here. If you think your life matters because of your skin color over another person, you don't belong here. You don't deserve to feel comfortable here. We need to do better. We really do. I mean, like non-students of color, like getting doors slammed in their face, little things like not having people hold the door open, not asking them how your day is going. You can't recognize me. I'm in Phi Alpha Delta. Half of my brothers can't recognize me if I'm not wearing my shirts. That's a problem. We all need to do better, all of us. It's not just administration's fault that this happened. It's administration's fault that it happened multiple times, but it's not entirely their fault. These things keep happening because we as a community are telling these people on these outside, on these websites, on everything that it's okay, and it's not. And we all need to come together to show that. It's not just the Black students' responsibility. It's not just the LGBTQA for students' responsibility. It's all of our responsibility because we all invest our time and our resources in this place.
That closes it. That closes it. You want to say something?
Thank you. And so part of why we wanted to have this session is actually a part of the action and a part of what we want to do to change the dynamic. Part of why there was a statement from Dr. Awe in the middle of the night, you heard, and in terms of trying to make sure we're communicating and that we are giving voice and a place for people to talk about the things that they're concerned about, talk about them directly, talk about them with us, do that. I think part of why I introduced the leadership here and why the leadership is here across the deans and everything is because everyone needs to hear this. And to the point that was just made, we all need to be a part of the conversation, not just a part of the community being a part of the conversation. And so today and this session are a part of this. As we think about going forward, as a university, I want to return to a couple of things. One is, I had the opportunity a number of years ago. Actually, I was the person for President Clinton that worked on the race initiative, which actually, you mentioned a little bit of that last night, Ibram, in terms of some of the work there. And, that initiative focused very publicly on the question of conversation and dialogue, which is an important part of getting to what I would consider fundamental cultural changes and changes in understanding and changes in knowledge in terms of the experience that students are having on our campus. When people hear that, they don't want that to happen. The vast majority of your colleagues, and some of them don't know. And so this is why the dialogue portion of this is extremely important, because at its root, we have to change the culture. We have to change the understanding. That is a process. Conversations, relationship, trust, that's a process that doesn't happen overnight. But the second part of it, and this is a part that you spoke to very well yesterday, and that I have worked on and had the chance to work on, is it is actually about specific policies and specific actions in terms of making sure. One of the things over this summer is hopefully you know where to report these incidents easier and better. That's a policy. That is a thing that actually happens. When we think about these things, and we think about, and you mentioned it last night, the idea of the policies around, I can tell you about health disparities. I can tell you that it makes a difference when the African American uninsured rate for health care drops dramatically and people have access. But that's not the whole way. It doesn't change till NIH, the National Institutes of Health, actually does research on African Americans because their heart disease is different. And so my point in these examples, that we as a university, both us as a community, and what we contribute in terms of your education, our research, and how we send people out into the world, are going to need to work on both of these, and we need to work on both of these together. One of the things that we are trying to do is commit to communication about when we are taking actions and when we are taking steps. That's why you got a memo over the summer from me about the actions, about the steps. And I'm clear, there will never be, I know, there is not a day that I will go to bed in anything I do in life, and this area too, where I feel like we could have done enough. We can always do more, and I think what we are going to do is do more. But I think one of the things we want to do is make sure that we're doing that and doing that together. And so I hope, we hear you. We are going to continue to take actions. We have taken actions. What we need the help with, though, is the prioritization, because we aren't going to be able to do everything. We also need responses, like there was a disagreement on the issue of the policing. And that's okay, and that's what the dialogue is about in terms of some of those questions about how one solves some of these issues. So we need your engagement in the prioritization. We need your engagement in how you think about some of these issues. But most of all, we need to stand as one community. That's the thing that gets us, I think, to the place that is the intangible that makes the difference over the long term. And I understand the best we can do is for our community, and that can become an example, because we are in a nation, and the nation itself, as was reflected by a number of comments, whether it's our district, the city we live in, or broader, where the nation is struggling on this. But I think the one thing we can do is stand united together in this community, be respectful, and be understanding and listening and wanting to hear what the problems are, and then as we go forward, move together to take both the policy actions and the culture actions. So I want to thank everybody for attending today. I want to thank you all for your comments and for your thoughts, and I look forward to us working together to continue to make progress on these issues. So thank you all very much.
So there you go, guys, an inside look at that forum. This is a live picture inside American University, professors and students and other administrators, of course, talking about this investigation of a hate crime from yesterday after posters were found. The Confederate flag taped to them were stalks of cotton. And just so you guys know, the police have identified a suspect that they're looking at. And this is a picture of that person, a white male in his 40s, about 5'10". So police are asking people if you have any connection or possibly know this person to contact them or send an online tip to American University. But anyway, some really impassioned, of course, appeals and speeches from students, even freshmen, all the way to seniors about this case, and we're going to keep our eye on this. Of course, like we mentioned, Tom Fitzgerald is there to get the story for later tonight, and we'll keep updating our post on our Facebook page and on our website. So continue to follow us, guys, on social, Fox 5 DC on YouTube and Twitter, and our website as well. We're going to have that story updated as this case kind of continues and the investigation continues. But thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. We're really happy to bring you a variety of different sources today for live and breaking news from inside our newsrooms. This is a live look inside what's going on today during the middle of the day. Hope that you've enjoyed, and remember to press that red button that says subscribe right below this screen to become part of our channel. You can see it behind me, the YouTube channel Fox 5 Live. So we'll be back tomorrow at 11:30 as usual, bring you some interesting stuff, live updates from Capitol Hill and weather, among other things. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining. We'll see you tomorrow.